Only Hollywood Video has Star Wars The Phantom Menace for 5 days, so you can watch it again and again. Welcome to Hollywood. Hollywood Video.
In the summer of 2023, Video Universe shut its doors in Robbinsdale, Minnesota. As a local video store, it had been in business since the days of VHS and still had the tapes present in the 21st century to prove it. Much like other video stores that had gone out of business, they had a liquidation sale in which their entire library was put up for purchase. As the perfect opportunity to save on used DVDs and Blu-rays, I would frequent the store many times during its final days. I walked among the many aisles of various genres and found myself appreciating the whole appeal of the video store. The layout was a bit crowded, but still loaded with variety. I mean, there was a whole shelf for the Criterion Collection, a whole shelf for the works of Takashi Miike, an entire section for the dozens of Dark Shadows VHS tapes they had, and a space specifically labeled as weird stuff. Now, I had rented from Video Universe a few times in the past, but not as frequently. I knew its days were numbered, and this closure was only a matter of time, more surprising because the store lasted as long as it did in the age of digital rentals and streaming, replacing physical rentals. They actually kept VHS tapes to rent in the 2010s, and I can't describe for you how weirdly satisfying it was to rent old Doctor Who and Max Headroom VHS tapes in the year 2013. As the store closed, the fading sun of the video store burned brighter in my eyes. It's easy to watch the fade of Blockbuster Video, Hollywood Video, and Family Video from the perspective of a vulture. After all, these were considered the corporate rulers of the video store era. I mean, they'd swoop in to gobble up the local competition and corner the video rental market. Sorting through their store's liquidated inventory felt like poetic justice, kind of feasting on the corpse of the corporation that claimed the little guys. It's only once they were truly gone, however, that the nostalgic sting started to set in. You'll never be able to cruise the aisles searching by video covers. You'll never be able to get into conversations with fellow customers about Friday the 13th or X-Men. You'll never get that satisfying thrill of walking out of the video store with a stack of movies, or the relief of getting them inside the return box just before closing time. You'll never experience those aspects of the video store again, so, tears in the rain and all that. An entire generation is going to grow up without video stores. As such, their only insight will be how those memories are told through those who were there. And the bulk of this recollection will be from customers. There is no shortage of millennials and Gen Xers who will relay similar tales of the video store. Fuzzy memories of Friday nights renting new releases for the weekend, sometimes capped with a takeout or delivery pizza to complete the night. Now, as someone who worked in a video store during the 2000s, I have my own memories that extend beyond, renting the last copy of Bad Boys 2 or paying a huge late fee on not returning The Matrix. Working in a video store wasn't exactly a dream job, considering I worked longer hours with less pay compared to the other jobs that I had during my teenage years. But it was a job that did have perks and the most vivid memories worth sharing. So gather around, children. An old man is talking.
Shut up!
In the fall of 2003, I was sitting in the manager's office of a Hollywood Video. I was applying for a position as a high schooler seeking an after-school job. The manager, a woman in her 40s, asks me the standard interview questions that I've come to expect, having had 2 part-time jobs prior. So, strengths, weaknesses, comfort with customers, etc. And then the mood shifts when she gets to her last question, and now there's a smile on her face. She asks me what my top 3 favorite movies were. And my answers, which were honest, were Akira, Seven Samurai, and Heavy Metal. And I regretted those answers instantly because I thought I'd blown the interview, having mentioned films that are not as notable in American pop culture. But the smile didn't leave the manager's face. She wrote down my answers and responded that she loved this part of the interview because she always gets to hear about films that she's never seen. So I hadn't blown the interview, but I almost felt like, man, if I had known that, I could have just mentioned even more obscure films. And sure enough, I got the job. As a high school student who could only work part-time, I was hired at the lowest employee level, my title being a guest service representative, or GSR for short. I thankfully missed the era when employees had to wear a tacky vest that matched the equally tacky carpet, and the attire was a less dorky ensemble of a purple button-up shirt and black pants. I rang up customers, stocked shelves, clean floors, and checked in return movies. The primary perk of such a position was access to videos, which was a major luxury considering the cost and level of access to movies and television at the time. Every employee was allowed to rent out 3 videos at a time for free. They did not include new releases that were less than a month old, but that didn't matter as we had early access before those videos even hit the shelves. Whenever we'd get in a new shipment of videos, we could check them out for a day before placing them on the floor. And watching the bonus features for films like Kill Bill and Matrix Revolutions before anybody else could just felt like such a treat. There was also the employee discount, which we mostly used on snacks during our breaks. The discount didn't apply to used videos that were for sale, but that was fine because another benefit was being able to hold behind the counter previously viewed movies to purchase for ourselves. So while I would still have to pay the same price as everybody else, I did have first dibs at the rental films that would be put up for sale. And even better, I'd know the quality of the DVDs before purchasing, ensuring that I got the best copy possible and didn't end up with one of the scratch discs, which, that happened a lot more than you would think. Every Hollywood video store was different, and I may have worked at one of the strangest locations. My Hollywood Video was a location that was previously a 2-story bank built on a slanting hill. Originally, the top level was used for all in-person bank transactions, and the bottom level was explicitly used for drive-up transactions with the pneumatic tube system. When Hollywood Video renovated the location, they really only used the top level. That level was used for the store area, a small back room where the money and security cameras were located, and a small closet that was used for storing non-work attire. We couldn't exactly close off the bottom level because that was the only location in the building with a bathroom. Thus, the bottom level became a bit of a stock area. We'd use it to store extra boxes, DVD cases, and video displays. And of course, we'd venture down there if we had to use the bathroom. We'd let customers use it as well, but they'd be less inclined to do so. The bottom level, it was spooky. The lighting was dim downstairs with no windows in sight. There were abandoned hallways that were closed off with doorknobs removed. And sometimes I just, go up to those doors and peek through the keyholes just to look through the darkness at the dusty holes as though I was looking into like a haunted, abandoned bank at times. Ugh, it gave me the creeps to go down there. Now, as for the drive-up portion of the building with the pneumatic tubes, this area wasn't used for anything. Employees would sometimes park their car in this spot during rainstorms or snow, as it was a covered area. We didn't do that as much, though, considering there was no access to the parking from the bottom level, as all the doors were closed off. You'd have to trek up and down the steep hill to get to and from your car. More often, this spot became a hangout for skateboarders. My manager would regularly check the area and try to shoo away teenagers who were practicing their sick skate moves or placing graffiti on the walls or the pneumatic tubes. Another issue with this location was getting to the top level where the main floor was. It required climbing several stairs or winding around the wheelchair ramp, which had 3 sharp turns to it. Had Hollywood Video been clever, they might have found a way to convert the bottom level into a Dropbox area, but they didn't. And instead, the Dropbox was located in the middle of the parking lot. It was convenient for the customers, but hell for the employees. Most Hollywood Video locations had a drive-by Dropbox that was only a few feet away from the store. Our store's Dropbox was much further away from the store and required climbing steep stairs to lug up heavy plastic containers of returned movies. And keep in mind, this was in Minnesota, and the winters made those stairs extra icy, which made every attempt to, go out and fetch from the Dropbox feel like, I was trapped in the movie Sorcerer. So what I'm trying to say is that this location was weird because it was originally built as a bank, and even after Hollywood Video left the location and other businesses occupied that building, it still looks like a bank. It is a structure that will forever be known as a bank until it is torn down. Another perk that most people recognize when working in a video store is that you get to watch movies, and this is kinda true. There were rules placed on what specifically we could play in the store at certain times. From 10 a.m. to 5 p.m., the manager permitted us to play anything rated G or PG on the store's TV displays. From 5 p.m. to 9 p.m., we would have to play the company's screener tape, and this tape contained movie trailers and advertisements for the store's products. I never timed it, but the total footage of the trailers and advertisements was probably 30 minutes that looped for about 2 hours. When the tape was done, we'd rewind it and start it all over again. And those many promos became baked into my memory for many years, and thankfully they've all been washed out now. From 9 p.m. until close, the manager would allow us to play a PG-13 movie. We were never allowed to play R-rated movies, however, this didn't stop the other shift managers from doing so. When the manager was not present for the night, shift managers would usually allow us to play anything we wanted. They weren't paid enough to care. I would also wage a clever battle with the manager over what films could be shown during the day. Clearly, the manager wanted us to stick to Disney animated films that would be tame for any family customers in the afternoon, considering that she usually went with those films when she was picking. But I took advantage of the PG rating limit. She didn't realize that PG-13 wasn't a thing until the mid-1980s, and that many films rated PG prior would have been labeled PG-13 nowadays. So I started picking all the likely suspects of the risque PG rating. Back to the Future, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Gremlins, and Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
And after the spanking, the oral sex. The oral sex! The oral sex!
Rated PG.
She was not happy with these choices, even though I was technically sticking to the rules. The manager soon changed the rules so that only G-rated films could be chosen. And again, she thought that this would limit the choices to safe Disney animated films, and she was wrong. I turned my attention to the documentary section and played the documentary The Endurance, which detailed an Antarctic expedition. Not as scandalous, but hey, it wasn't Disney. So once more, she changed the rules, and now I could only put on Disney animated films. These rules, of course, were broken by everybody who wasn't the manager. The cool shift managers in their 20s would play whatever they wanted, even foregoing the annoying screener tape. We'd have to be clever, though, because if the manager happened to stop in that day, we would end up getting in trouble. But mind you, not real trouble, just a stern talking to. One weekend, I was working the day shift with one of the cool shift managers during a raging rainstorm. Nobody was in the store all day, and we figured it was the perfect time to watch any film we wanted. So Hellboy had just released, and we decided to throw that on while we were eating lunch. Halfway through the film, we get a call that the district manager will be stopping by shortly to inspect. And we went into panic mode. We immediately eject the tape and scurry around the store cleaning everything we can. In the hurried confusion, I grabbed a random tape from the kids section. The district manager arrives and everything is going fine. But the tape I had put on was Transformers the Animated Movie. Now, I had not seen this movie prior and did not realize that this was the uncut version where there was cursing. And as the district manager was looking around, the movie gets to that one part that every child of the 1980s probably remembers vividly.
Look! It isn't even dented! Oh shit, what are we gonna do now?
The district manager looks up at the television playing the film and then back at me. He asks me, "Is that Transformers?" And I answer yes, uncertain of the reaction, and he replies, "That's awesome," and that he used to watch that show with his kids. Crisis averted. Like any job, there are stories about customers. I had some awful customers to deal with, but they all blended into a mash of similar complaints. There were those who couldn't pay late fees, complained about not having an account, and, a movie not being in stock, and so on. But the weirder customers were the ones that I remember most. One morning, an Asian man and his young son entered the store. He instructed his kid to find a movie while he approached me at the counter. Now, English was not his first language, so I knew I'd have to be patient with him. He asked me if the store carried any tech movies. I wasn't sure what he meant by this, so I gently asked him to clarify. He tried to correct himself, and he said tax movies. Still unsure of what he was asking for, I just gave him a post-it note with a pen so that he could write down the genre that he was looking for. And in his finest penmanship, he wrote, "sex movies." So I stifled my laughter and told him without a hint of mockery that our store doesn't carry pornography. He smiled and said, "Okay," before going off to rent something else. I kept that post-it note that said "sex movies" on my computer monitor for several days after that exchange. It was a great conversation starter with the other employees. Some customers would single me out. There was a balding man in a filthy brown coat and jeans who would often come into the store, and for some reason, this guy only answered to me, even when there were other employees in the store. He always asked me directly what new movies had come out that week. I don't know what I did to make him choose me. Maybe I just described movies in the best way once. I really don't know. Anyway, he'd enter the store every week and hear about the new releases. And if nothing looked good to him, he'd go with his safety, which was one of the Death Wish movies. It was always those 5 movies, usually. Never anything else from the older categories. It was this odd fascination that eventually led me to watching all of the Death Wish movies. Most of them were not very good, but Death Wish 3 did have this one funny moment.
Let me.
So thank you, dirty man who kept asking me about movies. You introduced me to Death Wish 3. There were shoplifters in the store, and they mostly stole video games since those were the most expensive items on the shelf. My manager gave the best advice on how to handle shoplifters. The required training video specifies that one should never approach or apprehend the shoplifters. My manager, however, stressed that your life is not worth the cost of a fucking video game. So don't risk it. The one time that the manager was able to apprehend a shoplifter was when there was a serial video game swiper who had arrived at our store. Thankfully, she informed the police to apprehend the individual outside of the store instead of inside, because it put me on edge having the cops just right outside in the parking lot. I decided to quit Hollywood Video after graduating high school in 2004. I would be attending college and wanted to focus more on my studies. Despite all the headaches that I had caused my manager with my rough learning and goofing off, she was still grateful for the help that I had provided. She thanked me for the good work I put in during my senior year and said that I could use her as a reference for future employment or if I wanted to work at another store. But I had no intention of returning to work at Hollywood Video. So, after graduating college, I returned to working at Hollywood Video. It was 2007, and I needed to find some work to build up money for paying off my student loans. The Hollywood Video I worked at this time was in a different location with a more traditional building, one that, you would commonly associate with the brand. No more peeing in spooky basements. Thankfully, I didn't need the manager's recommendation. One of the managers at this location was somebody that I went to college with and was fairly friendly with at the time. My previous experience working at Hollywood Video was enough to make him hire me right on the spot. The interview itself was more of a formality and a chance to just catch up with somebody that I knew during college. During this time, I worked as a shift manager at Hollywood Video, a major step up from a GSR. I could open the store on my own, work longer hours, manage the inventory on my own, and basically do pretty much everything I couldn't do as a GSR. And just like back in 2004, the other shift managers I worked alongside were more lenient with the rules. I started working during the Halloween season, and one of the shift managers brought in their copies of classic monster movies that we didn't have in the store. We'd watch these old movies constantly and rarely ever touch the promotional screener tape. Because as one shift manager told me bluntly, quote, "I don't get paid enough to have Justin Timberlake shake his ass at me for hours on end." And I agreed with him. Competition between video stores had increased during this era. One way that Blockbuster Video tried to get ahead was to strike a deal for exclusive access to movies. They made a deal with the Weinstein Company that only Blockbuster Video would get DVD copies of Death Proof and Planet Terror. Hollywood Video, however, did have a way to get around this. Okay, so here's how the operation went down. Death Proof and Planet Terror were going to be released on a Tuesday, like all movies. The Monday prior, a portion of the money that we had in the store would be set aside from that day's income. Now, typically, the income is placed in a deposit bag that is run to the bank the following morning. In this case, there was a separate envelope for buying copies of Death Proof and Planet Terror. So on Tuesday morning, after the manager dropped half the money off at the bank, the other half was used to run out to Best Buy and purchase a half dozen copies of Death Proof and Planet Terror. The copies would be brought back to the store, scanned into the system, and placed on the shelves for rent. So the exclusive rental rights were not that exclusive after all. I didn't work at this Hollywood Video for as long, as I chose to quit after about 2 months. And I still recall the events that made me want to quit. So typically shift managers would run the store on their own for the morning shift on weekdays. I had one of those shifts on the morning of a snowstorm coming through the state. Part of me thought that this meant the morning would be an easy one, but the other part of me knew that would not be the case. As I arrived at the store, there was just a huge line of people right outside the door, longer than any line I'd ever seen for the store. Never underestimate how likely customers are to venture out in a storm to rent a video when that is the only way to see a new movie. So I make the run to the bank, prep the store, and open it to maximum occupancy. I am swamped for 3 straight hours. The line of customers never dies down. All the DVDs had these magnetic locks that would have to be pulled out with a magnet, and the amount of those locks that started piling on my desk and spilling out onto the floor was just massive. It was basically, that scene on Hot Shots Part 2 with the absurd, hill of bullet casings. It was exactly like that. I was just swimming in all this. The line was still going after 3 hours, but I finally had some help when another GSR was coming in for her shift. And this younger woman was one of the nicest employees that I've ever worked with. But the moment that she entered with her enthusiastic smile, I immediately shouted at her to jump on a register. And I'd never shouted like that in my life at anybody, and just watching that light quickly leave her eyes was disheartening. After the checkout lines were cleared, I took my lunch break, ordered Taco Bell from across the street, and prepared my resignation. I was already interviewing for an internship, which wasn't a sure thing at that point, but I wasn't going to wait. This work wasn't paying enough for me to transform into a junkyard dog like that. I couldn't take it anymore. My final days at the store were in December, and thankfully the store was not as chaotic in my final days. I spent those shifts watching the Charlie Brown Christmas special and the Muppet Christmas Carol, and it was a relatively chill conclusion to my time working at Hollywood Video. And I got out just in time. Around this time, some of the Hollywood Video locations were starting to close and liquidate their stores. The video store was dying, and the vultures were already starting to pick at the remains. So here's how the video stores died. Blockbuster Video was going under due to their failed attempts to compete with Netflix. Hollywood Video made the smarter call of not trying to reinvent the wheel, but they had so much debt from their acquisitions that they couldn't stay afloat. Family Video became the last video store chain, as it survived the late 2000s due to wiser business choices. But this only bought the company enough time to last up until the early 2020s. Although it's still pretty impressive how long Family Video lasted. I mean, they were building new locations in the 2010s that had like a pizza restaurant attached to it. Like it was literally right next door. In fact, you could order right from like the new release shelf, and where was that when I was a kid? Some video stores still exist here and there, but they are too few and dwindling with each passing year. Video stores will be doomed to that tired meme about how kids will never know the experience of picking up a movie off a shelf. These stores are unlikely to return with the current decay in physical media, where fewer and fewer films end up on Blu-ray. Like many millennials, I have mixed feelings about the death of the video store. I don't miss the late fees or limited stock, nor do I miss working at a video store with its annoying customers, lackluster pay, and arbitrary rules. But I do miss the conversations. I miss being able to geek out with someone over the same low-budget horror movie or bizarre anime that we watched. And while these experiences don't have to be exclusive to the video store, it was an institution with the highest likelihood of having those conversations. It was the happy byproduct of renting movies from a brick-and-mortar store. Now sure, I can recreate the physical elements of the video store. I could redesign my basement to look exactly like one of them, and similar to, what James Rolfe did. But that's not the video store. It's an interior formatted to look like a video store. It's an imitation, a simulation, and an exhibit in a museum. And much like a museum, standing recreationally in such a decor is not the same as being present when the location was most prominent. Somebody from Gen Z admiring a basement-made video store doesn't have to worry about Master and Commander being rented out. They don't have the same desire to grab that movie on a Friday night, watch it for a weekend, and then return it before the weekend is over. Those kids will never get to experience what it's like to go to a video... Shit, I'm doing the nostalgia meme, aren't I? Okay, I should probably wrap this up. So, I hope this video has provided more insight from someone who worked at a video store. And I realize that my personal perspective doesn't reflect everybody's feelings or experiences with the video store, but at least I didn't make one of those, low-effort, waxing nostalgic videos that don't say much of anything about the subject matter. In the 1990s, if you wanted to watch a movie, you would have to go to the video store. You couldn't stream movies from your home. You'd have to go to the store and rent the film on VHS. If it was out of stock, you were out of luck. Did you grow up with a video store? Leave a comment below and let us know. We're interested in what you have to say and not just farming engagement. Also, be sure to like and subscribe so we can continue making videos about things you remember. Like us on Facebook.
Now you can rent all new releases or anything else for 5 days. Really? Yes, you can just enjoy it at your own pace. At other video stores, you only get 1 day on new releases. So you can enjoy it because you're too worried about getting it back on time. And then you gotta fly out the door in order to get to the video store before it closes. And the clock is ticking, the phone is ringing, the late fees are piling up so high.